everybody. Just to loosen up the mood a little bit, obviously, you all know why Larry told you. It's just not a national phenomenon, it's a worldwide phenomenon. This is just a map and some of the names that appear in the world of what a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot may be called. And, you know, a lot of us are familiar with the Yowie or the Yeren, which is the Chinese. But, you know, then you have the Yucumari of Argentina, the Maricoxi of Brazil. There's also the Manganperi of that's also in the Amazon. Rangpindek is another popular one. And, of course, the Yeti. But these are just some of these creatures that are reported worldwide. Reports in the United States, and a lot of people don't know this, but it's not the Pacific Northwest that has had the first sightings. It's actually been the Northeast. But the sightings have started since European settlers have been coming here. Again, continued through the 20th and 21st century. And, of course, over the years, they've had different names. Wild men, ape men, bear men, sloth-like, they've been called baboons. You know, it looks like resembling a baboon, a large baboon, and all these. Now, the first reported sighting in a newspaper actually came from Sackett's Harbor, New York in 1818, as a wild man was seen having reddish-brown hair. Let me give you some historical examples. When Samuel de Champlain in the 1650s was discovering the Northeast and going down the St. Lawrence River, he encountered the Micmac Indians who described the go-goo to him, which meant hairy man-beast. And that was really the first time we've heard of a Native American legend of such a creature. Rogers Rangers in the French and Indian War period in the 1750s, at the time he was a major, Major Rogers had a subordinate write a daily journal of what was going on. And one of the journal entries, I believe it was 1754, had an entry that they had to fire a volley of shot, a group of bears throwing rocks at them. Now we all know rocks don't throw bears. Bears don't throw rocks. Of course, we have the newspaper articles that have, you know, been throughout, you know, the last 2 centuries. You know, 1818, 1897, 1890, 1891, you know, 1891. So, I mean, you have all these examples that this isn't something that was driven by the media in 1958 when Jerry Crew found this new type of Sasquatch called Bigfoot. This actually had been going on for a much longer time. Now, let's talk about New York. And I know one of the kids had a question about, are they in New York? And, you know, people have here answered yes and no. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about New York to start off with. Let's talk about Whitehall in the 1970s. Now, what happened was a series of incidents began in 1976, starting in the summertime, and it stretched out through almost December, almost the end of December. Now, they included several by police officers, prominent residents. It's not a large town, and literally, it's probably one of the few places where you have a good percentage of the population that has seen something or heard something. The article of August 30th, 1976, in the local newspaper up there, the Glens Falls Post-Star, was detailing some of these events. One, actually, what I felt was a very startling and very realistic effect in what's going on. And what it said was Whitehall Police, New York State Police, and the Washington County Deputy Sheriff all responded to the scene, searched the area, but were only able to spot the creature from a distance. So they saw it. And that's actually the actual article. And it you know, it goes very into a lot of detail what was going on. There was rumblings of trash cans. It was probably about 5 or 6 different residents that had seen it and reported it. There was probably about another 5 or 6 that didn't report it at all. One of the big incidents was that an off-duty Whitehall police officer parked his cruiser on Abear Road, which is almost on the Vermont border of New York. And a state trooper came up who we knew was hanging out there, and they were just sitting on the road to see what was going on. What happened was something that they both saw described as being extremely tall, 7, 8 foot tall, long brownish hair, red eyes, glowing eyes in the flashlights, actually walked between their cars. Now what the officer did was he drew his firearm in his light and he put it on what it was. And the creature kind of just turned around, held its light up to the hand in front of its eyes because of the light, and just kept on walking. Now, in talking to this officer, one of the things he keeps saying is, you know, people keep asking me, and this goes back to a little bit about Melissa was saying about how witnesses come under a lot of scrutiny sometimes. You know, well, why didn't you shoot it? You know, why didn't you, take a shot at it? Why didn't you kill it? The whole mystery would have been solved. Well, the thing is, he was a police officer. And as a police officer, you only take a shot if you're in imminent danger or somebody's in imminent danger. It did nothing threatening, it just walked away. He had no legal grounds to shoot it, be it an animal, be it anything. So that's why he didn't shoot. Later on, when this happened, the trooper took off, and the officer actually trooper down at the local coffee shop, sitting there drinking a cup of coffee, and as he described it, he was sitting there with his head down, you know, handshaking with the coffee cup. Now this is a couple other notes that there were over a dozen sightings within the 5-mile area of this place. The officer's story is commonly referred to in that area as the Abear Road incident. Now what you're looking at is the actual field that the creature had walked in, and it was actually came across in here, and it cut down into the wood line there. Now this marker is about how tall it was. Strangely, when it all happened, this little sign has been up there since 1976. And they put this little thing in the utility pole to mark how tall the creature was, and I stand right about there. So it was pretty large. Again, we had incidents that occurred on Abear Road, which a couple of roads off it is Carver's Falls Road, Gould Lane, which all had sighting reports. Same time that was going on, Cliff Sparks, the owner of the Skeene Valley Country Club, owns a golf course. Him and his family have been hearing these screams since 1974. And while he was tending the golf course in 1976, the summer of 76, he was in his golf cart, and he came across one of these creatures just strolling along one of the the holes. And it was at night. And again, a very credible sighting from a guy very well known in the community that was willing to come forward. This is the actual golf course, and as you know now, they've kind of adopted Sasquatch as their... Now Whitehall is one of just a few townships in the United States that actually have an ordinance against killing one. In fact, I think it's even illegal to harass one within the town limits. And of course, they have this wood carving statue of Sasquatch sitting outside their town hall. So it's not a very unknown fact in Whitehall that they have these type of encounters.